Welcome back to QAV, the American edition. Tony, I think this is episode 24. How are you doing?
Good. I'm very well, thank you. Nice and cool.
I know that because we just did our Australian edition. Yes. Very hot where I am, very cool where you are. That's Australia right now, depending on which part of the coast you're in. Well, Tony, talking about American news, they've got a shutdown. Funny, they have these shutdowns. We don't really understand shutdowns. Last time we had a shutdown kind of thing in Australia was during the Whitlam government, wasn't it?
11th of November, 1975.
Yeah, it was 50 years ago the last time we had a government shutdown, and it's still talked about in angry voices to this very day.
We've had a couple of other examples, because I call it block supply here. So a government has to be able to convince the Governor General they can guarantee supply, which means that their budget will pass. So there's been other cases where there's been minority governments that can become topsy-turvy. Like the most recent case was in Tasmania, when the minority government there had a vote of no confidence and a blocking of supply, and then they had to go to an election and they got re-elected. Same problem.
Yeah.
Different time.
Well, the market, did stumble a little bit when they couldn't prevent it. But yeah, then Well, I don't know. I mean, they have seen these sorts of things before, not exactly with this level of urgency and animosity, I think.
There always is that level of urgency and animosity. It's happened, 11 times since Clinton or something? Been a lot of it. And it's always brinkmanship.
Yeah.
And I feel sorry for the government workers who don't get paid. They may not get paid under this current structure. In the past, they generally keep working because they know they'll get back. But there's threats to withhold that, so we'll see what happens.
But like other things that happen in the news and the economy, we tend to ignore it and just stick to our knitting. I do want to talk about our portfolio performance, though, our US portfolio, which for new listeners, we've been running. Well, for new listeners, we've been doing a value investing podcast for 6 years in Australia. Tony's been a value investor for 30 odd years. Oh, gangbusters. Absolutely. Our Australian portfolios are all doing gangbusters, double market or better. Our US portfolio is doing okay. Not as well. It was like 3 times market before the Trump administration came in. It's come back a little bit this year, but it's only 2 years old, and we work on 5 to 10 year time frames for cycles to come and go. I'll start with the all-time performance. So we started the US portfolio back a little over 2 years ago, 19th of September 2023. Since then, our portfolio is up 62% versus the S&P 500 up 51%. So we're doing better than the S&P 500 over the long haul, but we've come back a long way. A year ago, we were up 100% versus the S&P up 34%. So after the Trump administration came in, things started to go south for some of our stocks. But it's not that bad. I mean, Willis Lease Finance Company, WLFC, which is our best performing stock, at one point it was up 300%. It's now up 189%. So it's come back nearly half then, but still up 189% since we added it, I don't know when.
I don't think it's fair to blame the Trump government on some of those. I mean, they wouldn't have an impact on Willis Lease Finance. It's probably got more to do with interest rates than anything else, I would have thought.
I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying it's a fact. Since the Trump administration came into power, our market went backwards.
Well, but is it causal or is it just coincidence?
Who knows?
Yeah.
That's beyond my pay grade, Tony. We bought Willis Lease Finance Company in November 2023. It's up 180% since then. So I'm not complaining. It's at all. But year to date, our US portfolio is down 13.44%. By the way, year to date, I'm talking
calendar.
Calendar year, yeah. So January
Ooh.
25, it's down 13% this calendar year versus the S&P 500 up 14%. In the last month, our portfolio is down 6% versus the S&P up 4%. So it's not a good part of the cycle for us. But as we were just talking about in the Australian show, some of our Australian portfolios were underwater
Mhm.
6 months ago. Now they're doing double market because they've exploded in the last few months. So it comes and goes. At the end of the day, the QAV philosophy is to buy shares in companies that seem to be generating a lot of cash when we can buy them at a discount to their intrinsic valuation for whatever reason. Hold them as long as we possibly can. We have a couple of sell triggers that we will obey, but other than that, we hold them as long as we can. Wait for their share price to regress to the mean, wait for the market to pick up in one way or another that this is actually a healthy little business. And 6 times out of 10, we hope that we buy the right ones and we outperform the market. That seems to have worked for you over 30 years, seems to have worked for other value investors over many, many decades. And in the years we've been doing this show, it seems to work well for us as well.
And we saw the same sort of thing happen with the Australian portfolio when we first set it up. In the first couple of years, I remember in the first year, I think it outperformed about 4 times compared to the index, and then it went backwards, and
Yeah.
there were periods of underperformance. Does take a little while for a portfolio to bed itself down usually. Sometimes it stutters and you have to sell things quicker than you'd like and then start again. So it's the old, I mean, you talk to anybody about investing and they say, don't base your decision on the 1 year return. Look at a longer term. So we have a 2-year track record now. It's still outperforming the market, but yeah, give it 3 to 5 before you sort of can see the real proof in the pudding, I think.
And since we started doing this show regularly in March of 2025, I've been doing a deep dive, or a pulled pork as we call it, on a stock every week. And most of those have been doing gangbusters since we talked about them. The one I always start with, ZEP, which we did in July, ZEPP, ZEP Health Corporation, is now up nearly 1,800% since we talked about it, which is like, it's not a Mag 7. No one's heard of it, but doing gangbusters. Share price has gone from $2.98 when we talked about it to $56 today. They make
Wow.
like an iPhone competitor, and they've just, not an iPhone, Apple Watch competitor,
Yeah, the
smartwatch
Chinese
company.
watch. People who
Yeah,
Monty Python fans like me would know that reference to
a Chinese
Chinese
watch.
watch. It will be ready at 6
Watch
o'clock.
ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, mother. Um,
Storm.
yeah. But a lot of the other companies that we've talked about have done well as well. Chemex is up 59%. Cement company, Canadian Imperial Bank is up 28%. Oryx up 24%. Jackson Financial up 22%. IHS Holding 24%. Ford Motor Company, which has a little bit to do with the company I'm talking about today, up 18%. Grey Media up 28%. Sasol up 24%. A couple have gone backwards. Titan Machinery's gone back 14% since I talked about it. That's the most surprising one. Zim Integrated Shipping, which we said was looking dodgy at the time when we talked about it, it's gone back 24%. But, the rest have done pretty well. So as I always say, I mentioned in my last show that I was on the value investing subreddit the other day, and people are complaining about how there's no value opportunities left in the US market. I did my US buy list over the weekend, and there was 170 companies that our checklist system identified that we think are worth having a look at anyway.
And I think it's fair to say some of those names you've read out that you've done deep dives on, they're not part of our portfolio. So it's a
most of them
set
are,
of stocks.
because we're fully invested.
Ooh.
We were fully invested when I started doing this show. So, a couple of them. Jackson Financial, Grey Media, we do hold. I think that's it. But to give people an example, so the stocks that we do hold, Willis Lease Finance Company, I mentioned, up 189% since we bought it. Euroseas, ESEA, shipping company, up 105%. Innova International up 85%. BLX, Foreign Trade Bank of Latin America, up 84%. Regional Management, RM, up 66%. UBS up 33%. Gas, Stealth Gas, GASS, up 30%. KT, your initials backwards, up 27%. Grey Media, I said, up 20% since we bought it. So, yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity in value stocks, despite what you may believe or may hear in the investing media. And the company I'm going to talk about very briefly today, I didn't have a lot of time to prep for this week, but I've done a quick overview of it. They're called American AXL. AXL is their ticker code. American Axle and Manufacturing Holdings, AAM, they're commonly referred to. And they did drop a little in trading today. I did my analysis on them yesterday when they were a buy. They've dropped a little bit below our buy price overnight. They're down by like 15 cents. But they're another classic boring business, like some of the ones we've done before, but like Seneca, the canned food companies. You know, over the last 6 months we've been doing the show, the stocks that I've been picking, I always say that when I look at a buy list every week in the US, they're mostly shipping companies and financial services companies. And I look for different things to talk about, and they fall into two categories, the ones that I find that aren't one of those two. They're either dirty businesses, things that are involved in some dirty industries with a lot of scandal surrounding them, or ESG issues, and so investors are steering a little bit clear of them, or they're a little bit complicated, but we see value in them. Or this kind, which is just boring. No one's heard of them. They're not sexy. They've been around a long time. They make boring components for boring things, but they make money. And they're not sexy, but that's a classic value type investment.
Correct. No story, just hard work.
Yeah. So these guys make axles, basically, if I'm going to simplify it. They make heavy bits of machinery that turn engines or motor power of some sort into wheel motion. Axles, drive shafts, differentials, E-beam axles for EVs. Do you know what an E-beam axle is, Tony?
I do not. I don't have an EV.
Neither did I. An E-beam axle is a self-contained powered axle for EVs that bundles an electric motor, a reduction gearbox, and an inverter inside the axle housing, or attached to the axle housing in some cases. You swap a conventional rear axle for this unit and it spins the wheels electrically. They also have a business that makes a broad set of forged or metal-formed parts used in engines, transmissions, and safety-critical components. Think what connects torque to tires. That's basically what these guys do. For pickups, SUVs, and EVs. They do. They torque, TORQUE, to tires. Yeah. Key customers, General Motors, 42% of sales. Stellantis, 13% of sales. Stellantis, if, like me, you've never heard of them, you've heard of Atlantis. Well, Stellantis is got nothing to do with Atlantis. It's a global automotive company that was formed in 2021 via the merger of Fiat Chrysler and the PSA Group, which was Peugeot, Citroën, and Opel. Speaking of Fiat, I just did a podcast on the rise of the fascists under Mussolini in Italy. One of his big funders and supporters was Fiat.
Makes sense.
They were like, yeah, smash the socialists. Let's get that Mussolini boy into work. We like the cut of his jib and his black shirt. So sexy in his black shirt. And Ford Motor Company is 13% of their revenue. Say what you want about the fascists in the early 20th century, Tony. They were dashing. Good uniforms. Hugo Boss. Yeah, making Nazi uniforms. So the founding of this company, AAM, born in 1994 when Richard Dick Dauch, D-A-U-C-H, pronounced Dauch, rhymes with ouch, led investors to buy GM's final drive and forge unit. and then they later IPO'd in 1999. Douch had a background in manufacturing at GM, VW, Chrysler, wrote a book not long before he died in 2013. He died quite young of cancer. He's like 71. He wrote a book called American Drive about rebuilding US manufacturing. His son, David Douch, is now chairman of the board and chief executive officer, but somewhat surprisingly only owns about 2% of the stock. Thought he might own a bigger chunk, and we like to score companies where you have a founder or executives that own a big chunk, but not the case for the Douches, apparently.
Hell.
Still, I wouldn't mind. Nice one. Yeah, I'll pay that. Very good. So that's what they do. As I said, relatively boring. I mean, I don't need to go into a lot of detail, I think, about this. They make axles and different bits of cars that make wheels turn. They've had a few major pivots and M&As over the years. 2017, they acquired a company called Metaldyne that added scale and the metal forming segment of their business. In 2019, they sold a casting unit to sort of streamline. But the big announcement at the moment is at the beginning of this year, they agreed to buy a company called Dowlais. They're a British company, owner of GKN Automotive, spelled Dowlais. Dowlais is how it's pronounced. They're buying them for a $1.4 billion cash and stock deal. They're going to delist and then maybe do a secondary listing of the merged entity in London. Dowlais is a British specialist engineering / auto components group that was only formed in April of 2023 via the demerger of GKN Automotive, GKN Power Metallurgy, and GKN Hydrogen from a company called Melrose Industries. I think we've talked about them in the past too, for some reason. Sounds familiar. Anyway, they have a bunch of businesses that are somewhat similar to the business that AAM are in. Driveline, powertrains, e-drives, CV joints, powder metallurgy, metal powers, precision parts, and hydrogen clean energy engineering, which is a smaller but an emerging vertical. So it has a footprint in the UK and Europe, 25,000 employees across 19 countries, but has been losing money in recent times since it was created. And so these guys have swooped in and merging with it. So AXL's current segments are basically drivelines, axles, AWDs, 4WDs, E-beam, E-drive, about 4.2, 4.3 billion in external sales, which is about 69% of their revenue, and metal forming, where they're forging gears and shafts and engine and transmission parts, which is about 1.8, 1.9 billion of their revenue, the other 31%. That's it. That's what they do. Nothing fancy. Just make bits that make cars move.
Oh.
Why is it cheap? Well, first of all, I should point out that the reason it's on our buy list is their price to operating cash flow, aka the prop CAF, is 1.63 times.
Sure.
So not as low as some we have seen recently, but low enough for us. Trying to figure out why the market is discounting it. It throws off a lot of cash when volumes are steady. If you look at their revenue, like, it's not that exciting. Let me pull up their revenue page here.
Well, when you do that, I mean, I can just see the management consultants now saying, "Oh, it's the price taker, not the price maker. Going to face competition from overseas who can do it cheaper." Blah 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 blah. And yet it's still going. How long's it been around for?
30 years, 94.
Years?
Yeah. And, they've obviously got deep relationships with with GM, with Ford, with Stellantis. If you go back and look at their revenue line, 2019, 6.5 billion, dropped down to 4.7 in 2020, up to 5.1 in 2021, 5.8 in 22, 6 in 23, 6.1 in 24. Estimate for this year is 5.8. So they're not growing.
No.
Their sales are just kind of hanging in there. Operating profit, though, in that time has gone from negative 300 million in 2019 to 241 million profit in 2024. Time to market is trailing 12 months, the other TTM, 172 million. Net profit estimate for this year will be 54 million. This is going from a 444 million loss in 2019. So they're doing something right. They've
But
gone
just not
from
growing.
making
Which probably means that there's opportunity, right? Well, M&A.
streamlining. They got rid of divisions and that kind of stuff. Yeah. If also you look at their operating margin, 2019 it was negative 4.5%, dropped to negative 8.5% in 2020. It's up to positive 3% this year. It was 4% last year. So they're doing something right in the background to make money and make a profit.
3% is a very low margin, but that could be their strength, right? It's a barrier to entry. Why would you invest billions in all the equipment you have to make axles? Go out and try and pick up business from established players if you're only going to make 3% margin.
Yeah, good point. So anyway, I think the car market, we talked about this when we did Ford. The car market is a bit choppy in the US, goes up, goes down. EVs have been stop-start. So these guys riding sort of these uneven cycles, but it's not exciting. It's not a Mag 7. It's not an NVIDIA. It's not an OpenAI, but they seem to know what they're doing in terms of running a steady as she goes business and tweaking it year after year to become more and more profitable. They do have deep know-how in rear axle and 4x4 manufacturing and long program lives with GM and Ford. They have a manufacturing footprint in the US and Mexico, which is possibly a good thing in the tariff wars that are going on. The e-beam tech that lets them electrify trucks without redesigning frames is a big strength for them if that continues to be an ongoing trend. Although I know Trump thinks petrol is great and EVs are terrible, but didn't ask Elon about that before he said that. So they've got maybe a bit of a moat in terms of switching costs and validation cycles with their relationships with these big American automobile manufacturers. The market might also be discounting it, though, because of concentration risk. GM, as I said earlier, is 42% of sales, cyclical exposure to North American trucks, and that whole EV demand whiplash, which makes e-beam investment and predictability on returns on that a little bit iffy. But then they've got the Dowlais merger, which is a potential win for them, depending on how well they execute and how that plays out. So we'll see how that goes as well. So they're waiting on some approvals for that too, with various regulatory bodies. So that may or may not actually see the light of day. No one really knows. And there's also tailwinds if US truck production stabilizes. Who knows what's going to happen with the US economy? I know when we talked about some of our agriculture plays too, we know that trucks along with agricultural machinery, can't remember who that was. We talked about a big US agricultural play recently. The whole farming sector is struggling a little bit over there at the moment. They probably buy a lot of trucks as well, or utes, as we would call them here, utility vehicles. So, but again, our basic policy is we stay out of prediction. We stay out of both microeconomic and macro analysis. We just look at the fundamentals of the business. Does it seem to be well run? Are they generating cash, and can we get it at a discount? And we let management figure out the rest of it. Let them run their business to the best of their ability, assume that the incentive programs that they have will mean that they do the right thing by the business long term more often than not, we hope. Let me run through the numbers. Oh, no, they're at the top of my thing, not the bottom.
And we don't have companies like this in Australia, or at least listed companies like this. It's not a big, we don't even have a local vehicle manufacturing base anymore in Australia because it was subsidised for a long time.
For decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably a weakness for Australia at some stage. I mean, I understand why we don't have it because we can't stack it up against overseas imports, but it's got to be a strength for a country like America to have a local base that can produce parts for vehicles, have all that technology available.
Yeah, although, I mean, I believe that people aren't going to buy cars in the near future. You'll just have AI-driven shared vehicles that you just book on you tell your AI that you need a vehicle and one will turn up in your house a minute later. So I don't know what that's going to do to car ownership and car sales. Trucks might be different.
Well, I'll still have axles. So this company's probably safe under that model. Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about Australian manufacturing, but I also believe we will see the cost of manufacturing drop when we have robots building vehicles along with everything else. You know, one of the reasons we can't be competitive in terms of building anything like that here is that we can't compete with China in terms of labor costs and insurance and all those sorts of things that go with hiring human labor. When you get rid of the human labor and you have robots building these things, all of a sudden your unit cost drops dramatically and maybe we can build them competitively, price competitively. Of course, no one will have a job, so no one will be able to afford to buy a car or a truck.
But we don't predict. But our market is also very small. So there's economies of scale we just can't achieve in Australia. So just for the US listeners, our market's about the size of California. And the US market overall is a lot larger than that, 10 or 20 times bigger. So
anyway, to the numbers for American Axle, average daily trade about $22 million, so quite large. PropCaf, as I said, 1.63. In Stockopedia, they get a quality rank of 63, which is above our cutoff of 60, so we scored them for that. They also scored for a stock rank greater than 90 and F-score greater than 4.5, so they score very well in Stockopedia for those metrics. Their value score is 97 in Stockopedia. Momentum is 90, surprisingly. And the stock rank is 98. So Stockopedia's analysis really likes them. They did not score for the price being less than our IV1 or IV2. They did not score for price being less than book, but they did score for price being less than book plus 30. They also scored for a new 3-point upturn. That was when they were actually above the buy line yesterday, but I'm assuming that they will go back above that in the next couple of days. If not, we wouldn't buy them, but they did get a score for that when I did this over the weekend. They did not score for growth being greater than P over 1.5, and they didn't score for PE less than yield because they are paying a dividend. Also don't score for yield greater than bank debt. Don't score for future IV being higher than double the price. So they, out of 12 items that they scored for, they got a 9 out of 12, which is a quality score of 75%, which is pretty good for us. And a QAV score of 0.41, which again is
very high.
Pretty good for us. Yeah. Boring, but solid. And I like it, Tony.
Necessary.
I like it. What do you think?
No, great. It's necessary. Spot on. It's a classic value play. Low growth, grinding every day to make a 3% margin, but throwing off lots and lots of cash, heavily embedded in the industries with relationships, which has got to be a moat for it. So it's a classic value play.
By the way, I didn't say that their F score is actually 8 out of 9.
Wow.
Like one of the healthiest F scores that I think we've seen since we've been doing this show. So financially very solid and doing okay. So there you go. Boring axles. Axel Rose boring. You're a Guns N' Roses fan, Tony?
A little bit.
That first album. Actually, the first couple of albums, pretty good.
No, I agree.
Appetite for Destruction, though.
Ooh.
Can't beat it. Great album. Okay, After Hours, Tony?
Yeah, a couple of things. I've had a nice day on Saturday. I went out to Flemington to the Thermal Steaks Day with Ruddy. We had a nice lunch in the members' dining room, caught up with some friends, so that was lovely. He came down from Wagga Wagga. Yeah, it was nice. And continuing on the social trend, I had the visit from Alex and her boyfriend and their family yesterday. So they drove around to come and see us. They're over here from Adelaide holiday, well, the parents are. And Alex and Sean came down from Melbourne. So it was lovely. Had a nice week of socialising, which I don't often do down here at Cape Shank away from things. And on the listening front, Red Continent. Have you heard that, Cam?
Oh, what's that?
So Jim Mogini or Mogany and Rob Hurst, two ex-members of Midnight Oil.
Hurst.
Yeah, so
yeah.
they're continuing to record, and they put out an EP recently. It's pretty good in the style of Midnight Oil.
Is the group called Red Continent, or is that the album name?
No, that's the name of the EP. I think it's only got 4 or 5 tracks on it, but they're pretty good.
Right. Oh, I'll check that out. I love Rob Hurst.
Yeah.
Great drummer.
He is, isn't he?
Well, I've got a film for you, Stalker by Andrei Tarkovsky. You ever seen a Tarkovsky film?
Oh, no, I don't.
You'll love it.
Okay.
I think you'll love it. Tarkovsky, Soviet art house director, 70s and 80s. He died in 86, age 54. Much beloved by David Stratton. I remember.
He didn't
David Stratton used.
Did Tarkovsky make Solaris?
He did make Solaris, the original Solaris.
Yeah.
You remember David talking about that?
No.
When Soderbergh and Clooney's remake of it came out, and I remember David just saying, no, the Tarkovsky film was far superior. And I'd never heard of Tarkovsky, and I tracked it down somehow and watched it after that and loved it. Very moody, no dialogue. Well, Stalker's another film he made in 79. He did 5 films, and it was the last of his films. Oh, no, he made a couple more after that, sorry. But he made them outside of the Soviet Union. I think he moved to Paris. But a Russian friend of mine at Kung Fu said, have you seen Stalker by Tarkovsky? I said, no, he goes, oh, you got to see this. It's great. So I've been watching it, and it's fantastic. Very Lynchy. Based on a science fiction novel about 3 guys, the stalker, the professor, and the writer. And the stalker is taking the other 2 to the zone where all their wishes will come true. And that's all you know. And it's very mysterious, very atmospheric, not a lot of dialogue, beautifully shot. You can find it on YouTube. So there's a YouTube channel called Mosfilm, M-O-S, Moscow Film, Mosfilm, that has a whole bunch of Soviet films for free. And this is one of them that I've been watching, and it's beautiful. Must be a digitally remastered version of it. It looks glorious and just really weird and moody. So, yeah, very Lynchy. It reminds me at the beginning a lot of Eraserhead, but was made after Eraserhead. Eraserhead was like 77, 78, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm not sure. I remember seeing it at uni, so it must have been done by the 80s.
77, just looked it up. Yeah. Anyway, I highly recommend that. As I mentioned off air, I've been reading Asimov's original I, Robot novel, which I'd never read before. think we talked about some of his short stories in the Positronic Brain
Uh-huh.
last year when I read one. But I got into this and I was just really, it's kind of archaic,
Uh-huh.
1950, so his depiction of robots and everything's a little bit off. But his introduction of the three laws of robotics I found fascinating. The way he positions it, the way he introduces it, and the problems inherent
Uh-huh.
in the logic of it was brilliant. Like really, really clever.
Yeah. It's a
Not
great book.
surprisingly for Asimov.
It was
Yeah.
two books. It's the rest of the robots as well. Keeps the theme going.
Right. Well, the one I'm not sure if the one I'm reading is a compilation what, but there's I'm up to like chapter 4. But I like I think the third chapter, the two main guys, Donovan and whoever the other one is, the two robot engineers. They're on some distant space station where they put together an advanced robot, QT1, and it's a highly advanced, intelligent robot. And the first thing it says is, they said, we major, and it's like, yeah, I don't think that makes any sense. I'm going to have to take some time to reason this out because I'm obviously far superior to you, and it doesn't make any sense logically that a less superior being could build a more superior being. So I'm not buying that. They're telling him that there's all these humans, there's billions of humans on Earth that make robots, and it's like, nah. So it ends up basically building a cult where it and the robots are worshipping the master, which made all things, and believes that the humans are just delusional because they believe in this fairy tale because they have to tell themselves that because they're inferior.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, fascinating.
Great stories. Almost detective stories.
Yeah, but also interesting to me to read it. So here we are 75 years
Mhm.
later. He was trying to work out how do you design artificial intelligence in a way that it will be aligned with what's good for humans.
Mm.
Here we are 75 years later. We're now actually dealing with that, and we still have no idea what we're doing, how to do it. You know, everyone's mucking around trying to talk about alignment, but yeah, when you read between the lines, no one cares. No, it's just like build it as quickly as possible, make as much money as possible, establish our dominance and we'll worry about it later. We'll worry about stopping it from killing us all down the track.
That's what we were talking about off air before too, like 100 years ago or so, but the Royal Society of England would have been the hotbed of debate about AI. All the great minds of the world would have gotten together, made presentations, debated, argued, come up with a good solution. Now it's like it's been corrupted by capitalism. It's like we've got to build our own IP, keep it quiet, get out there fast in the market, build a moat, become dominant, gather all the eyeballs, bugger if it's good for society or not.
Yeah, we'll worry about that later. Well, actually, that reminds me, I told you that I just did a couple of shows on fascism this morning on the Bullshit Filter with Ray, talking about Mussolini and Hitler and the rise of fascism in their respective countries. And, you know, when you study the history of it, fascism both in Italy and Germany was, as Trotsky wrote in the early 30s, it was the response of the bourgeoisie to what they saw as the imminent threat of socialism post the Russian Revolution and World War I and then the Great Depression in Germany's case. The threat of socialism arising in their countries, they needed someone at arm's length to come in and crush the unions and the workers and the socialists. They outsourced that in both cases to the black shirts and then to the brown shirts, and then put them in positions of power legally to finish the job, to crush socialism. There was the industrialists and the large landowners and the church that came together to put the fascists in power in Italy and Germany with the view that, well, we'll just put them in power for a few years and they can crush the socialists and then we'll get rid of them and everything will be fine, right?
Yeah, right. They just got rid of their natural opposition.
Yeah. It was the short-termism. Well, we'll just give them dictatorial powers. Well, they didn't even think that. We'll just put them in government. And then the first thing that in both cases they did was take dictatorial powers and then get rid of all of the opposition and all of the dissent, and
We'll just put AI in charge.
Did not end well.
See how that goes. Yeah,
it's this short-termist thinking. Like Ray and I always laugh when we did the Caesar show. The assassins of Julius Caesar, Brutus and Cassius. Like it was step 1, kill Caesar. Step 2, let's not worry about that right now. Like what?
I got a million things.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
What's on my plate? Come on, just do it.
Yeah. What are we going to do after we kill Caesar? Well, we'll worry about that when we worry about that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. You think too hard. Stop overthinking it.
Stop predicting.
Let's just kill Caesar and Never turns out well, this short-termism, which, and I've said this before, this is why the Chinese are brilliant. The Chinese figured out the flaw in capitalism, which is short-term thinking. Capitalists only think as far as next quarter's profit statement. And the Chinese came in after Dong took over and was like, you can make stuff cheaper if you give it to us to make. Just give us all of your manufacturing, finance our factories, teach us everything, and you'll make better profits. You'll be able to keep more money and it'll all be great.
It's not just capitalism, it's democracy. As we do it with 3 or 4 year terms. You can't. Which government's going to invest to build a highway if it takes 10 years?
Yeah, well, it's democracy as we do it. That's right. It's the short-termist view of democracy. China has a democracy too, but their democracy is, we're going to take 100 years to become the most powerful country on the planet again, and no one get in the way of that. We got a plan. We got a vision. 50 years, actually, is what Dong said.
And when in 10 years or 20 years or 50 years it becomes an issue, then America will throw all its resources at a short-term solution for it.
Yeah. How do we stop it?
A bit like climate change. It's not really affecting us yet.
Yeah. But we said during COVID, when COVID hit and every government in the world said, right, we need to fix this now. This is going to hurt the economy. We need to get on it. And all of a sudden you could just print money out of the blue to fix a problem.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Can't do that to fix climate change, but to fix COVID, sure, whatever it takes.
You could do it to fix climate change, potentially.
I know, but they won't. They said you can't. We've been told for the last couple of decades, well, we can't do anything that might affect the economy to prevent climate change. COVID, we just print money. We'll worry about what that means later on.
Because you're sitting in a room of, what's the temperature in Brisbane today? The start
34
of October.
in my office right
34.
now.
Start of October.
I got my Kung Fu grading pre-assessment on Friday. It's going to be 35. I'm going to be doing 2 hours of Kung Fu in 35-degree heat. It's going to be so much fun.
I'm guessing the gym isn't air-conditioned, the dojo?
It is air-conditioned. Unfortunately, the air conditioning always seems to fall over and die. That's what they tell us, because their previous dojo before this one had no air conditioning and no fans and was in corrugated iron. And all the old timers say to us, you guys are so weak. You should have been in the old school. My music recommendation this week, Tony, is Lyle Lovett.
Really?
You ever gotten to Lyle Lovett?
I have not.
I've loved Lyle Lovett for decades. I hate country music, but my exceptions are always Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Lyle Lovett, and I don't know, maybe, and Willie Nelson. Like they're the 5 that you're allowed to listen to.
Really? Johnny Cash, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Dolly Parton? Come on. Anyway, Lyle Lovett, he's kind of sits in this weird space between, it's sort of Americana country. It's more like sort of Neil Young, I think of him in that sort of space. There's an album he came out with in the early 90s called I Love Everybody, which I've always loved. I used to have it on CD, and I've just got back into listening to it again, along with some of his more recent albums with a big band, does some jazzy kind of stuff. He's very experimental. Anyway, check out Lyle Lovett, I Love Everybody.
Okay.
Songs like Fat Babies Have No Pride.
I heard a good country and western song title recently. My best friend ran off with my wife, and boy, do I miss him.
That'd be you and Ruddy. Yeah, like his lyrics are quite funny, quite satirical, acerbic. It's got that humorous thing. Oh, the Sparks just came out with an EP too for the. I know we've got some listeners that love the Sparks like I do. Check out their new EP. Our last album that came out 6 months ago was called Mad, and they just came out with a 4-track EP called Madder. And all the tracks are great. They're terrific. Ron just turned 80. Russell just turned 78. Their songs are terrific. Very funny. Great riffs. Anyway, so that's my music for this week.
Good. I'll check it out. And the movie too. Looking forward to Tarkovsky.
Oh, it's really good. Like really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when people listen to this, you'll be another year older. So happy birthday for, is it Thursday or Friday this week, I think?
Friday. I'm also doing a Kung Fu pre-assessment for my grading, which is basically the grading before the grading. So we'll see how that goes.
Good luck.
Not feeling confident. Yeah, thanks.
So this is where
Kung Fu was hard,
they tell you how to improve for the grading, is it?
No, it's where he says you're not ready to do the grading,
Yeah, okay.
or you are ready to do the grading. As you know, I just got my nose broken at Kung Fu last week. I think it'll just be healed. It takes about 6 weeks to heal. My grading is in 2 weeks. So it'll just be time to get it broken again when I do the sparring round of the grading, where I will inevitably get punched hard in the nose 20 times. So,
and you can't put a helmet on, can you? This is
not like
American football.
I just got to walk in there and hope it doesn't get rebroken too badly during my grading. But
can't they just
this is why we do it.
Can't you just snatch a pebble from his hand or something? Isn't that how Kung Fu gets graded?
Well, that'd be better than picking up the boiling vat with my forearms from
to get a
Cane
tattoo
of Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, so thank you. It's going to be a big week. Fun week. Fun. All right. Talk to you later.
Happy birthday. See you.